Okay, in Unreal Engine 2, I think the first game we released with it was in 2002, September. Before us, actually, America's Army released in July 2002. That's when the first PC games shipped on Unreal Engine 2. We switched to using OpenEL to be able to share the same code across all platforms between Mac, Windows, Linux. We had a direct sound on Xbox, which I don't think OpenEL was actually a feasible option back then. The main thing changed from Unreal Engine 1 to Unreal Engine 2 is the source prioritization and volume being platform specific, and that didn't work out too well. There was a lot of duplicated code which made it hard to maintain, fix, and a lot of legacy to deal with. One thing worth mentioning is volume changes required script changes, so which means whenever a sound designer wanted the weapon sound to be changed, or the volume of the weapon sound to be changed, it required a programmer to again and change the script. So it was entirely not data-driven. One thing to note is, if you have a placeOn function, and your placeOn function takes a volume in code, you're technically not really data-driven at that point, because as soon as you put a 0.5 in there, you no longer can adjust it and count it correctly. We used roughly the same kind of reverb solution as Unreal Engine 1 did, which was zone-based. Unreal Engine 1 and Unreal Engine 2 use BSP for shutting out levels, and portals have zone-based visibility, which allowed us to have self-contained areas where the level designers already zoned the level. So we did some nice tricks where we knew the distance between zones, and did attenuation based on that, and also did traces to see whether there's a direct line of sight. We had quite a few features like text-to-speech and speech recognition and voice-over IP in Unreal Tournament 2004 out of the box. So text-to-speech was used. We went a little bit overboard with features. Unreal Tournament 2004 had an IRC client in-game, and if you're playing the game while you're still in the IRC client, the text on the IRC client was actually spoken to you. It ended up being quite a good feature for development, where in the past people tend to neglect what other people say on the channel, like, oh, this feature is broken. But if they actually hear it, it was more ingrained. Speech recognition ended up being a little bit underused, but we had the ability to provide bot commands, so you could say alpha cover me, and your bots would actually start covering. We had a voice-over IP solution for which we used Speaks, which is a cross-platform open source project. And the system requirements back in the day for recommended system specs was around 1.2 GHz Pentium with 384 megabyte. Unreal Engine 3, the first Unreal Engine 3 title shipping was RoboBlitz earlier last year, and Gears of War and Rainbow Six Vegas. On the PC we use OpenEL with the EFX framework, X-Audio on Xbox, and a multi-stream on PlayStation 3. One of the bigger changes is, it was almost an entire rewrite. From Unreal Engine 1 to Unreal Engine 2 we made only minor changes, but with Unreal Engine 3 we were able to get rid of a lot of legacy systems. So the source prioritization and volume are platform independent and then shared code. We also went to an entirely data-driven system. I'm going to give a little demonstration of this later, but this puts all control for volumes to the audio designer. So if the relative volumes aren't correct, it's the audio designer's problem, not the programmer's fault. So very nice. It also allowed us to add new features without having to worry about each individual implementation, because the abstraction layer is fairly high at the watermark there. We went with a volume-based reverb and a line check-based occlusion due to the fact that we are no longer using a zone-based occlusion. For level designers don't zone the levels. So in that regard, it's a slight regression with regard to functionality. We're still using text-to-speech and speech recognition, but switched over to using Phonics instead of Microsoft SAPI, as it is a cross-platform solution that is slightly better quality. We're also planning on adding voice-over IP again, but the implementation is still a little bit in flux because it's heavily dependent on our high-level networking solution.